Good Friday morning. We're staying with the Acts of the Apostles. You know what you're going to see now. Paul's in Corinth, okay? This is hugely important, okay? Because he's now preaching more and more with the Jews, into the Jews, but mostly now into the Gentiles. And what you're going to bump into now is Roman law, the Romans. Because you're going to see that they start to play a more and more significant role. See, the church preaches within the culture, within the laws of a culture. Sometimes in opposition, banging its head against some of the laws, okay, and or whatever, but often within the laws itself. She doesn't function in an anarchic society, but in an orderly society. Legal order is necessary for the well-being of society. Even as atheistic philosophers, Thomas Hobbes saw that without law and without the Leviathan principle of law, that is the king, he was thinking of the king, okay? But let's say the rule of law, you have anarchy. There's nothing more dangerous than a society that has no structure, no law. That's frightening. I'd rather live in a country with bad law than no law. See? Because once you evaporate law and respect for law, you are really letting loose the whirlwind. When everyone becomes what Thomas Hobbes goes into the state of nature, everyone for themselves, because you have to survive. And so one becomes an enemy of everyone else. When you have a collapse of government, when you have the collapse of law, then it is survival of the fittest. It's a Darwinian world of horror. That's why it's very important to sustain the rule of law. Dangerous revolution. Dangerous when you overthrow government. When you overthrow it, and you would produce a street logic, a street law. I kid about the streets, but the streets, you'll universalize that. See, the neighborhood could be actually its own law, but there is a structure. You turn it away, and all you have is the street. You have anarchy. And what happens in anarchy? Chaos, followed by tyranny. It could be the tyranny of the majority. It could be the tyranny of one. History is replete. So here, even in Paul, he's a profound respect for the law. Besides, he's a Roman citizen. He's a natural. He is by birth a Roman citizen. It's going to need a week from now on Friday. Okay, you'll see it next week on Friday. Okay, it's a cute story. He's getting his brains knocked out. Okay, but now by the Romans, he's in jail. Bing bada bang bada boom. I got to read it to you when we get there. But when he says to the whoever the guy was, the captain of the guard, whoever's beating on him, he says, "Oh, by the way, I'm a Roman by birth." What? What? Yeah, I'm a Roman. You touch me, you're dead. Because the rule of law says a guy get a fair trial. He said, by the way, I want to talk to the emperor. Every Roman had a right to appeal to the emperor, and that's how Paul gets to Rome. By rule of law, Roman law. He's getting his brains knocked out, but he is a Roman. Hence, under Roman law, the church goes to Rome. Paul goes to Rome. See, of course, he joins Peter there. Okay? Neat, isn't it? Rule of law. I think of that all the time. The necessity of structure and law. Anarchy is the enemy of civilization. Anarchy. You see, of every major revolution in the 20th century, took it. What followed? Dictatorship. Dictatorship, and then a worse horror. What you never want is chaos. You always want the structure of law. See? That's why revolutions are extremely dangerous. The worst form of revolution is civil war, when you have actually warring within yourself, violently warring against yourself. That's worse than even a revolution against a dictatorial power, such as the American Revolution against the British. It's worse. The Civil War was worse. It's us against us, you see. And that's the danger you have. Polarization and violence. St. Paul played within the rules of civility and law. He played within the Roman law. So did Peter. See? The church functions within the law. Often she has to challenge the law. She's challenging the law on abortion rights. She's right about that. See? She's raising the question of who constitutes a person under the Constitution. You see? There's nothing pious about this. It's who counts as persons. See? Under the protection of the law, which is the primary responsibility of government. is to protect its citizenry against external aggression and internal chaos. See? The two great enemies, the enemy from without and the enemy from within. So the church is voicing that, not out of piety, but out of a profound sense of constitutionality. Who counts as persons? The state doesn't tell you who's a person. It's supposed to protect those who are persons, not say who's a person. That's the Dred Scott case in 1854. When in the Dred Scott case, the court here in St. Louis declared Dred Scott was an African slave to be property. Property led to the Civil War, okay? It was not property, see? It's very key. That's why in the early going of the so-called pro-life movement, they appealed to the Dred Scott case. It was actually correct in making that appeal. It's extremely dangerous when a government declares who's a person rather than protecting all persons. And when in doubt, you protect them all. Protect all, see? The witness of St. Paul. St. Paul played within the rules of the Roman Empire, within the rule of law. And that's how he brought the church and his gospel message through the law, through Roman structure and law to the world. He and St. Peter and the other apostles, you see? And men and women, you see it in the story. See? The church doesn't preach anarchy. She preaches a civilized way of life, but within the broader structure of civilized communities and law. When we go to China, when we're preaching the gospel in China, we're dependent upon the rule of law in China that it will protect the missionary, the right to life of the missionary, you see, to protect the people. Now, see, this gets really interesting, sometimes in such a manner that we have martyrs to come of it, you see. But I think the key thing I'm trying to emphasize right now is that St. Paul's playing by the Roman rules. You see, it will eventually get him executed along with Peter, okay? But the rule of law, he stays within the rule of law. He appeals to the rule of law. He's wise. See? And sometimes when the church challenges the rule of law, challenges a particular law, she gets persecuted. We're going to get creamed because of the Roe versus Wade. The church is going to take a lot of heat. Okay. But we have an obligation, not only a right, but an obligation to defend the sacrality of all human beings and their inviolability under the Constitution, not independent of the Constitution, but for and through and by the Constitution. Okay? So she has an obligation to do that. She's going to do it. The price may be sky high. It doesn't make any difference. The church flourishes within the law, and sometimes she flourishes through the martyrdom within the law. The church doesn't thrive on anarchy. No one does. The enemy of civilized life is chaos, is a breakdown in the social order. Better bad law than no law. Better than a tyranny, a corrupt government, a government that is still flawed to the core as long as it's functional, because you can deal with it. You can't deal with anarchy, chaos. You can't. And Paul knows that. He plays within the rules. So did St. Peter. So did the apostles. It got them killed, but they changed the world.